Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the world of next-generation encryption, and we're going to uncover a hidden vulnerability that has, well, pretty much nothing to do with supercomputers and everything to do with the physical world all around us.
So, let's just jump right in with a big question. We spend billions of dollars and just countless hours of brain power trying to create these codes that are, in theory, absolutely perfect, totally unbreakable. But what if the key to cracking them wasn't buried in some super complex math, but in something way, way simpler?
Check out the title of the research we're exploring today. It sets this really fascinating and honestly a little bit ominous tone. It suggests a world where the security we all rely on isn't based on the information we're trying to protect, but on the mistakes a system makes. So what does that even mean?
Okay, so to really get the problem, we first have to understand the solution it's a part of. We're stepping into the era of post-quantum cryptography, or PQC for short. And this is the stuff that's designed to be our shield against the incredible power of future computers.
So what is post-quantum cryptography, really? Well, for decades, our online security has been built on math problems that are just way too hard for today's computers to solve. The thing is, quantum computers are coming, and they're expected to chew through those problems like it's nothing. PQC is the new generation of math problems, the ones designed to be tough for everyone, and that includes those quantum computers.
Now, the secret ingredient in a lot of these new crypto recipes is something called noise. Just think of it like a big blast of pure mathematical randomness that gets mixed into all the calculations. This randomness is exactly what makes the code so hard to predict, and because of that, so hard to break. It's kind of the digital version of trying to find a needle in an infinite haystack.
And here is where our story takes a sharp turn. That beautiful, perfect theory of PQC is about to run smack into the messy, imperfect real world. This is where we find cryptography's hidden flaw.
But here's the catch. That perfect, unpredictable mathematical noise doesn't just poof appear out of thin air. It has to be created by something real. It's actually generated by physical parts inside a computer. The chips, the circuits, the actual things you could hold in your hand. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. On the one hand, you have the ideal, the theory, pure, unpredictable mathematical randomness. But on the other hand, you have the reality, noise that's being generated by physical hardware that, well, can be influenced. And that gap, the one right between the ideal and the real, that's the problem.
So, how does this little vulnerability turn into a real-world threat? We are now talking about how an attacker can literally use things like heat to break our most advanced security systems. It's wild.
Which, of course, brings us to the most obvious question. With all this talk about these amazing quantum-proof algorithms, how on earth does an attacker actually find a way to crack them?
And the answer is really surprising. They don't. They don't even try. They just completely sidestep all the complicated math. Instead of trying to solve this impossibly hard puzzle, they just kick the table it's sitting on. They go after the machine itself. And listen, this isn't some science fiction movie stuff. Attackers can use very real, very physical methods. They can carefully apply heat to a chip, create these tiny, targeted power surges. Think of it like a quick flicker in the lights for a microchip. Those are called voltage glitches. They can use electromagnetic interference, or even directly inject faults into the system's calculations.
The goal with these physical attacks is actually incredibly precise. First, they use these methods to influence the so-called random errors that the hardware is making. Then, by doing this over and over again, they can force that randomness to become predictable, to create repeatable patterns. And the moment that noise isn't random anymore, it starts to leak the very secrets it was supposed to be protecting.
So, all of this really forces us to redefine what we're actually defending against. It's not just a battle of algorithms anymore. It's a battle between the perfect logic of math and the physical vulnerabilities of the machine that's running it.
And this right here is the main takeaway. The biggest danger to our next-generation security might not come from some future quantum computer at all. It comes from how we build our systems today. It's an implementation threat, a vulnerability that's born from the way we turn perfect math into imperfect silicon. It really all boils down to this one simple and frankly terrifying idea. If someone can control the error, they can control the security. It's that simple.
The entire foundation of security just shifts from fancy cryptography to basic physical control of the hardware.
Okay, so after all that, what's the solution? How do we possibly defend against something like this? Well, that brings us to our final section, how we can build a future that's truly resilient right from the start.
The path forward really means we have to embed brand new principles into our designs. Our systems need to be fault-resistant, which means they can actually withstand these kinds of physical manipulations. They have to be side-channel aware, which means they're conscious of information that might be leaking out through things like power consumption. And probably most important, their security needs to be hardware independent by design, so it doesn't all depend on the perfect behavior of one specific piece of silicon.
Because if we don't adopt these principles, that whole quantum-safe label, it just loses all its meaning. It becomes another empty promise, just a fragile assumption waiting to be broken, not by a quantum computer, but maybe by a simple, well-placed heat gun. And that leaves us with this final, critical question to think about. As we're racing to build this quantum-safe world, are we completely forgetting about the physical one we live in? It really seems like the future of security depends not just on brilliant math, but on brilliant engineering that actually respects the messy reality of the world around us.